With more studies showing the impact of climate change on our living world, more and more people are beginning to take notice. As former President Barack Obama once said, climate change is no longer some far-off problem. It's happening here, and it's happening right now. As some of you may have noticed, with climate change becoming more prominent, the habitats of many animals are changing, some of which we can observe right here in Arkansas. Animals are changing when and where they migrate, losing their food sources, and ultimately losing their lives. Global warming and the ruins that come with it should no longer be ignored. Mother Nature sent out warning signs to humanity decades ago. In the book An Inconvenient Truth, written by Al Gore, studies began above the islands in Hawaii in 1985, 1958, by scientist Roger Revelle to study the amount of CO2 in our atmosphere. Within just a few years, there was solid evidence of increase in carbon dioxide. And here's a chart of his findings over a 50-year period. Due to pre-industrial concentration of CO2, which comes from power plants and nuclear reactors and such, it is increasing the layer of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. And the up and down motion that we see is easily explained by our vegetation. In the northern hemisphere, we have our most concentrated vegetated area. That means all the plants and trees that breathe in CO2 naturally, when they're breathing that in, our CO2 levels in our atmosphere goes down. It'll go back up when the vegetation is, what's the word? In winter, where it's not breathing in all that CO2. So this absorbs more heat from the re-radiation of the sun's rays from going back into space. Without going into so many specifics, into the physical science of this, global warming is basically the increase of surface heat to our planet when re-radiation rays bounce off this man-composed CO2 layer and deflect it back onto the surface instead of releasing it back into space. Now, this reflectivity from the new CO2 layer has globally impacted the Earth's surface ice. I'm going to show you a few images. One is going to be right here, Mount Kilimanjaro. Now, this was taken in 1970. Keep in mind the ice and the snow accumulation up top. Next page. This is Mount Kilimanjaro in the year of 2005. Solid evidence that the Earth is warming up very rapidly. Second one I would like to show you is Uppsala Glacier in Patagonia. The top was taken in 1928, and then by 1988, it was a lake. Last and but very much not least, Glacier National Park, taken in 1932 to 1988. The effects of climate change and the effects it has on our world has severely impacted the dense populations of all living wildlife on these terrains. One of these survivors is the Pacific walrus. Now, the Pacific walrus is only one of the 3 lasting walrus species we have left on our planet. And as Roger Silvestro states in Will Global Warming Doom the Pacific Walrus, walrus numbers were much reduced by years of uncontrolled hunting in the 19th and early 20th centuries, leaving behind a mere 200,000 mammals divided between the 3 species. Now, already on the mend, thanks to hunting protection laws, the Pacific walrus's future is still uncertain. These massive beasts are the biggest of their species, weighing in around 1,900 pounds, and 9 feet long with up to 5-inch thick blubber on a diet of a variety of marine animals. Now, walruses eat sea cucumbers, sea worms, but their main food is clams, which they eat on the ocean floor. Now, the Pacific walrus typically summers on the ice in the Chukchi Sea, which is around Russia, as they allow for shallow waters for the animals to dive for food. Now, due to climate change, the ice is diminishing towards the poles. And as the sea ice retreats into summer, the walruses are taken far from shore and away from the shallow waters that they need for feeding. With the lack of ice near their feeding grounds, the walruses are packed onto beaches that can only hold a fraction of their numbers. Biologists also found thousands of crushed walruses near Russia's Cape Schmidt in 2007, where tens of thousands of these Pacific walruses had packed ashore in desperation. More so, thousands of young walrus pups most likely drown in open waters when they can't find ice for resting. Stress on these walruses increases as more of the animals crowd into feeding areas near shore, jeopardizing their nutritional health and reducing the number of young that are born to survive. What happens to these walruses when they are crammed onto islands too small to occupy their numbers can be very easily explained in the Netflix Our Planet episode called Frozen Worlds.
Some manage to find space away from the crowds. They struggle up the 80-meter cliffs. An extraordinary challenge for a 1-ton animal used to sea ice.
Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot prepare you for what you are about to see, but know that it is a sad reality that too many people ignore due to climate change.
As they get hungry, they need to return to the sea.
This breaks my heart every single time I see it. But the results of these desperate times for the Pacific walrus as they fall from heights they never should have scaled, as narrator David Attenborough states, proves that action needs to be taken now. And each one of us can start recycling, stop littering, volunteer for roadside trash pickups, anything just to help our planet and our everyday lives. I love the earth, and I know you need the earth, and it's our home. So let's fix our home together for the animals, for ourselves, and for our future.